Okay.
then through your story.
Okay.
Okay, I believe we are live. So, welcome everyone to the 23rd edition of Human Mode Conversation. I'm Nogol Madani, founder of Refactor and also the host of this podcast. I have the opportunity of talking to Akanksha Malik, Vice President at InTac today. Akanksha, thank you so much for being here. I know you're a
For
busy
having
person, so
me.
thanks a lot.
Oh, you're so welcome,
So
and it's a pleasure to be here.
awesome. So, Akanksha, we've already had this conversation that becoming a leader in today's world is quite challenging with everything happening. Like, people have to navigate change. They have to shift identity from being a performer to enabler. They have to perform and transform. They're constantly asking themselves, "Am I staying relevant?" Like, it's quite overwhelming. So, my goal from these conversations is that first of all, I would love to expose people to a different kind of leadership role models that we might not necessarily see all the time. Plus, I would love through your story, just give them an opportunity for a mindset shift for and some insights to build their like identity and their capacity as a leader with a bit more confidence, hopefully. So are we ready to start?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, the first question that I always would love to ask our guests is that how do you define leadership? And, for you as an executive who's been leader for a while, how has this definition evolved through time?
Yeah. I mean, your leadership's definitely, the definition of leadership's evolved for sure, depending on what stage of leadership I was in my career.
Hmm.
But I would say the biggest, simplest way I can put what leadership is taking accountability for your outcomes as well as your people. It's giving them direction, helping them get clarity, and making it safer and easier for people to do their great work. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but it's less about the leaders trying to be heroes, but it's more about creating the environment, building the environment so people can really shine and thrive. And so sometimes it boils down to just simple taking care of your people, taking care of your outputs, and showing impact.
Hmm. And I love this, but definitely, Akanksha, the first question that comes to mind is that this is not necessarily the definition that we grew up in or we've been taught
Yeah.
in our system. So, like, how is it different and why this lens of leadership matters today?
Absolutely. And you're absolutely bang on. We did not grow with this definition. Our definition traditionally, and if I can frame it as pretty much command and control, is shining, being the savior, helping the group find their. It also was a little different. Your titles meant so much. It meant authority in the past. Meeting signaled progress. And I feel like having the right answer was the definition of competence. Whereas that's not the case today. The reality is very different. I mean, leadership is less about the control, it's more about the influence and the impact and outcomes. Setting clear direction for your team, providing them alignment without micromanaging. Also, showing up for your team even when you don't have the answers.
Hmm.
I mean, teams these days are moving faster, they're more diverse, they're more distributed, there's additional complexity, there's social, political, economic factors playing a role in humans' life.
Yes.
And now success depends more on the trust, the transparency, and the empowerment.
Yes.
So, in many ways, I feel the currency of leadership has changed from position and power to now trust and giving support and creating the safe environment for your teams.
I know, and I love what you mentioned that even if you don't have the answers to show up, I traveled to Toronto for like a keynote last week, and I shared something on LinkedIn, which was really interesting. Like, I'm a nervous flyer, and like the two flights, they had a lot of turbulence. And the second pilot on the way back home, he just really like talked before we just went before we start flying, and he said that it's going to be turbulence here, it's going to be turbulence there. And it was just such a clear picture. It was not a perfect picture that this is going to be a very smooth,
Yeah.
landing and taking off. It was a very clear and transparent
That's
vision
it.
of what's ahead. And what I keep hearing all the time from people, and I thought that it feels good, even though I know that the road in front of us is not as fun, but it's good to have that communication, to be transparent, to give that a bit of clarity about what's ahead of us, which I
Yeah.
think that so many younger leaders, and in general, so many leaders think that this means that we have to fake certainty. We have to go there and say everything is under control, which is not.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's instilling the confidence by being real, true, and authentic, and giving them the state of art as is,
Yes.
and being transparent.
I love this. I love this. So, I would love to bring you back to your earlier days as a leader. And what was one of the challenges that you were facing? Definitely was a different time. We didn't have probably AI and all of that. But I still see that the challenges can be quite similar. So I would love to hear from you. What were you dealing with those days?
Do you know what? I still remember this as it was yesterday because I think I use that as my guiding principle. And one of the biggest challenges, honestly, I felt was that I had to prove that I deserved that seat that I got. And I did that by constantly making sure I have all the answers, taking that pressure on myself to be right, to be first, and just saying, "Hey, I deserve this role" by overdoing it. And then what happens then is you come across just so intense, can be defensive, and also you burn out. And I've experienced all of that. And so what I had to do to navigate and kind of shift was actually really my paradigm shift, mental model shift. And what I did that is by saying, I'm accountable for the result, but not for by being the smartest person in the room. And then once I embrace that, I don't need to be the smartest, I don't need to know all. I just need to make sure that I know how to find the answers. And once I embraced that, I started asking more questions. I started narrating my thinking. I became more clear with my teams and I started sharing my vision. And also I started leaning on my team more. I started surrounding myself with smarter people, really great talent, and then I empowered them to make those decisions. And I was there to back them up, support them, instead of carrying that weight all alone. And another thing, interesting thing that I learned over the years was, you know what? When you're a leader, you're only as good as your lowest denominator, which means don't leave your weak players behind. Hold them, like bring them together with you. And that doesn't mean coddling by any means. It means you're being transparent, you're being clear, and you can have those hard conversations and giving them feedback, timely feedback so they can grow, and then you can build a team that pulls the weight together versus the leader having to be doing that alone.
I love what you're sharing. And I think that, Akanksha, to your point, don't you think that this is still, especially for female leaders, this is still the pressure from the system that we have to be the one carrying the weight, like, because this is what I'm hearing constantly. And my job is to definitely help them with that mindset shift from performer to enabler. But at some times, I'm just asking myself this question: that what if the system is asking for performance from that leader? It's asking, exactly to your point, to prove that they are worthy of that seat. Like, how
Yeah.
did you navigate that?
One of the questions I would ask ourselves, who is the system? We are the system. We're building the system. I understand there's a lot of leaders who are more traditional, who have been there. But I think I would say start from yourself. Be the leader you want to see other leaders have those qualities and start leading by example. But I know it's easy said than done. It's having through lived experiences, learning it the hard way. But I feel like some of the things that I still see leaders do and challenges they're facing is feedback avoidance. Like I see wanting the desire to be liked so much and avoiding the hard conversations.
Yes.
It's not providing the direct, timely feedback. And I always say jokingly to my teams, and they've overheard this, and if they're on the call, they'd probably know. is feedback as the breakfast of the champions, and it helps you get better and stronger. So take it, it's a gift. It may not feel good in the moment. Reflect on it and just do what you want to do with it, but it is there for a reason. The second piece I would talk about is that I see young leaders make these mistakes, and now more so than ever, is there's so much information overload. Way too many sources, too many distractions, constant pings coming my way, not enough time spent on deep thinking, deep work, and reflection. And if you don't reflect on mistakes we've made, we don't learn. So like making some space for that free thinking, for strategic thinking, and also on self-learning and growing. And then the third piece I would say that I constantly see happening, and again, there's many, but these three stand out for me as I see newer leaders operate. And I would say that is like feeling like you have to constantly earn your seat fast and fast. And so you over explain, you overwork, you try to have all the answers. I've been there, done that, and learned it the hard way. So I just always call out for the young leaders is make sure it's not just about putting your head down and doing all the hard work. It's about leaning in your network, building your brand, building those relationships, because you don't win alone. You need the community around you. You need to build that trust around you. It's a currency where I keep talking about that. So it's how do people back you up? How do you lean on them? How they lean on you, and building that support system.
And and I love this, Akanksha, because I hear from leaders that they say that we are too busy performing that we cannot even connect with our own teams, let alone, building that network, like gaining visibility. So I love this approach. And, it's like your point on feedback is spot on, because when we ask people what kills psychological safety, it's either like receiving feedback but not acting on it, not giving feedback, being defensive about it. Like the idea of so many people, to your point, they want to keep their likability and they say that we have an amazing culture, but in fact, they are avoiding these hard conversations that can help everyone grow, everyone take the next step. And it's extremely key, which I think that it's very important for everyone listening that to understand that you can still be not necessarily liked, but you can still have that respectful, safe environment while having the hard conversations, because that's to your point where learning happens. But like another point that you mentioned, Akanksha, is around deep work, that I love your approach, and I catch myself that whenever I'm in the execution mode, you're just executing, performing, and then when things slow down, I said, okay, what was this? Let's reflect back on it. How did you build that muscle, and how did you create that space for yourself, but also for your team? Because this is something that you keep hearing, that we don't have time for that, and I believe that if you want to be that facilitator and enabler of change and performance, you need that space for reflection,
100%.
for ideas sharing, for reviewing. But people constantly say we don't have time. So how would you answer that?
Yeah. I first of all say you make time for things that are important. So you always have time, whether it's time to work out, time to do mindfulness exercise, time to do reflection, time to spend time with your team to get to know them, to build that trust. So time, not having enough time is an excuse, and we all know deep down that we can carve out the time. And so I would say it starts with intentionally making time for what's important. Block your calendars, have some time about thinking. And years ago, as I was a growing leader and emerging leader, I actually did a really great program. It was 2 days. You're in a house. It's called Director House Training, and you were amongst other leaders and you're learning. And one concept that stayed with me that I still coach people on, and it's called the balcony time or the dance floor time. And this analogy, I'm on the balcony or I'm on the dance floor, I've always kept it with me because it's just so relatable. So what that means is when you're on the dance floor dancing, imagine if you can a ballroom and you're dancing on the dance floor. you're so busy on just focusing on you, your steps, not stepping on others. Am I in sync? You don't even know what's happening around you. So you're just in an operational autopilot mode. You've learned the steps, you've been practicing for so long, you have your partner there, and you're just dancing. And you want to finish the music, not make any mistakes. But if you're actually on the balcony watching the dancers, you're able to have a macro view. You're able to see every dancer. Are you able to see, are they in sync? Are they all dancing to the same rhythm? Are they stepping on each other's toes? And that's your balcony time. And so if you make intentional time, the balcony time, it helps you focus on, how did my week go? How did I show up as a leader? Was I there for my team? Did my team show up the best way possible? Did I bring alignment and all the values I believe in? Did those show up in my day-to-day operations? And then reflecting on what could I do better and how can I be a better person, better leader, and a better team player. So I think it all comes from intentionally having to make time for these things. And the second piece, I would say, a huge quality that I had to actually like really learn from being an individual contributor to shifting to a leader was like intentional focus on coaching. So not giving the answers, not telling my team what to do, but asking questions and getting them there. So skill of helping people truly come up with the answers, decide for themselves, grow without grabbing the steering wheel from them and wanting to drive. So once you learn to ask questions such as, so what is a trade-off team? What options did you consider? What would great look like? Asking a lot of open-ended questions, not just yes and no's, it helps you build that muscle that you can ask questions and lean in on your teams, and it builds up muscles for them to be able to think and come with solutions. And then you're there giving them confidence to say, hey, if the ball gets dropped, we'll pick it up. Give them the psychological safety so they can take some risks. They know that their leader is behind them, but you're helping them find the answer. And then when you start doing that, you don't become the bottleneck as a leader, you become the multiplier. And then you see like growing results, your teams thrive, they do amazing work, and you celebrate the successes together.
And I love this, and I cannot, like, I mean, this is the best way to put it out there, especially I think in today's world that you won't even have all the answers, Akanksha. Like, even if you try your best, you won't have it. But then the follow-up question to this that I hear from like younger leaders is that, you know what, this is our expertise. And if we lose that, are we going to be relevant? How can it, like, how did you create that shift that, you know what, my relevancy is basically my expertise, my technical expertise. How did you make that shift, and how do you help your younger leaders? You know, you're running like leading like 600 people. Like, how would you change that for them? Right? How did it change, that switch shifted for you?
Yeah, definitely Nogol. And I think it comes with, you have to sometimes unlearn some of the things you learned. As an individual contributor, your work, your own brand brought outcomes. That's what made you shine. As a leader, the value is generated differently. It's generated by your team's performance, their engagement. So you kind of have to unlearn that it's not me and me, only one. It is what my team delivers becomes my value. That's one shift. I would say the second thing you definitely have to unlearn is, and especially it applies to my personality trait, which is unlearn the urgency. Not everything is a fire. And when you treat everything like crisis, you create panic in your team. And then you just don't create an environment where they can thrive. The other thing important is that, like, don't make everything important. Focus on some bite-sized, laser focus on few things that you can do really well versus doing a lot of things not so great. And so if everything is important, then nothing is important. So learning to know the difference between the urgency, what's urgent, what's important, and how do I make time so I can prioritize and then clearly communicate and articulate what is a priority.
I love this. And you know, I can't tell you how many times when we ask people what kills psychological safety, is that everything is urgent. So I don't even feel comfortable sharing like my idea because I think that this is not important enough. This is not urgent enough. So to your point, like it literally shuts down people. And at the same time, like I can understand that there are like people are going through time that everything is urgent, but I really believe that as a leader, if we can help our team prioritize and say
Yeah.
no to certain things and somehow like organize their thought, like it is one of the key points that we're hearing. And obviously with AI and everything happening,
Hard.
everyone is rushing. Like, so
Yeah.
how would you answer that? That if people are sitting there and say, you know what, everything is
Yeah.
urgent because we're changing all the
Yeah.
time. Like, how did you create that like mindset that, you know what, not everything is? How did you do
Yeah,
that?
and you know what? That is such a good and heavy loaded question, and I think about this all the time because this is not something that I've just mastered already. You're everyday learning. There's some days you hit the panic button too, and in your mind you're like, I want to go fast. I want to complete this. It's resetting. It's pausing. It's taking a breath. It's being self-aware. Also, like just that moment, the reflection that I talked about sometimes helps you learn what you're doing. But also, like I would say, you mentioned the AI and the technology. It is in the times of AI and this rapid technology advancements, I would say the soft skills matter even more today than they ever did before. And they're the two true differentiating factors for the great leaders. So if you say what traits usually matter most to make leaders very effective, very strong, and how you can differentiate between good and great, I would say a couple of things that stand out for me is one is resilience building. So how do you bounce back from your setbacks? How do you be steady when there's uncertainty? And also helping your team recover and refocus. It's again back to where's your focus, what's your priority, what urgency level needs to be applied, is it important, can it wait, and where does it fit in the priority? And also, it's not about just what more can we do, it's pausing and saying what we need to stop doing. And a lot of times our focus is on what to do versus what not to do. And the efficiency and the power actually comes from looking at things we shouldn't be doing. So that's my first piece that I always talk about. I would say there's a couple of other, like the qualities that now more so important, Nogel, than ever before. And you mentioned the technology, like the I am the technical expert and I can do, well, yeah, I can do all that eventually. So being technical expert is not going to be your differentiating factor as a leader. As a leader, your emotional maturity, how you stay grounded under pressure, how do you help your teams deal with anxiety and problem solving, trust building, being consistent, making sure you say what you're going to do and you do what you're going to say. So the follow throughs, like those are the real human skills that'll come as your power. And another one I would say is learning ability and your ability to learn, but also your agility. I mean, I don't think you ever stop learning as a leader. You're not perfect, you'll never be. But what you do is you keep growing your skills. And I always say to myself, and I say this to others, I coach and mentor, I say, learn all the skills because these are your tools to the tool belt. And you never know which tools you would need in future. So just learn and never be done because this is a journey, right? And then lastly, have the courage. Like saying the hard thing as a leader, making the decision and protecting your team from chaos. I feel like those things are so critical, so important in being the right leader, being a good leader, but also you mentioned how do you become effective? How do you make time for these things? If you have these grounding principles and these behavioral skills, I think you can handle all the other complexity that comes your way.
And I love this, Akanksha. Like, you know, we talk a lot about leaders as facilitators, and to your point, creating a space for reflection, holding the space,
Yeah.
like giving that, you know, having that grounding, like foundation, being that grounding foundation for your team, but at the same time, allow them for ideas to emerge and then connect the dots. Like these are
Yeah.
literally the things that I totally agree with you that is extremely important. But then again, there is another question all this time, and I know the answer that like we never thought that soft skills were important, or this was not necessarily
Yeah.
what was prioritized, you know? So, how can people and systems that is still not in organizations that this is not necessarily still? I believe, I've been challenged with one of the guests here that just said, no, well, no, I think that we are getting to the point that we are saying that these are the concrete skills, these are the core skills, the human skills. But I still hear from people here and there that for the soft skills or interpersonal skills, we have this budget, and then for AI, we have another budget. Like, there's one thing to understand it, is another thing to grow it and to develop it. What would be your like advice or your like insights to okay, how can leaders out there still build those muscles, even if what's in the system or in the organization is not necessarily giving them that opportunity to grow those
Yeah.
muscles?
I think be on the driver's seat, know what's happening around you is important.
Hmm.
Not every company will be as supportive. I'm lucky that I'm in an organization where soft skills are given even more focus than technical skills because we know how fast the technology is advancing. I've been in the talent space for a long time and I've recruited external talent. I've helped grow talent within the organization. And the emphasis we put on the soft skills is way more than technical skills for obvious reasons. Because technical skills can be taught. It's not rocket science. You can teach them. You have enablers such as AI technology. But I feel like things that are harder to learn and they come over time or they come if someone has to give you a bit of a playbook, these are these soft skills. And some people may never get those skills because they're not working on it. And so these are not, and when people say, no, you're either born with it or you're not, I disagree.
I
Every skill
totally
can be
agree.
learned. You become the person you want to be by getting all the, like there's so many sources available. You
Yeah.
can go on LinkedIn Learning. You've got all these external programs available. There's books, there's podcasts. Information's available so much at your disposal and this it's free. So it's just a matter of being curious. And I think curiosity is named as the number one skill these days because if you're curious, you're asking the right questions, you're trying to find out how can I be relevant and how can I stay relevant.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of times people say, oh, AI is coming to take our jobs. And I always jokingly say, AI won't take your job, but people who are very skilled in AI may. So
Yeah.
not about it's not about technology, fearing technology. I think it's embracing, accepting what's happening around us, and then being on the driver's seat to say, I'm going to make a change. I need to learn, I need to enhance and upgrade myself. And just whatever ways you do, there's plenty available outside to
I
seek
totally
help.
agree with you, Akanksha, that this agency is within us and we have like so much information. And I love the word that you said, that intentionality around how you want to grow. I think this is extremely key. Like if we prioritize like building these capacities, like there is enough information out there like for us, like, to do that and to build that. Um, I have a question from you because you are, I would say, a queen of transformation. You just pivoted completely,
I
as a
pivoted my entire
star.
biggest pivot in my career.
Yeah. And for so many people, for so many leaders, like they are going through transformation, but they have to also transform and change. I would love to hear your thoughts about like how do you go through these pivots? How do you somehow jump into these different opportunities that they're like 180 degrees different? Because
That's right.
whatever you do, whatever you do, it's going to be very helpful for people listening.
I would say, I mean, and then for those on the call who probably don't know me enough, is I have spent a lot of time doing the work in HR, talent acquisition, talent management, also in strategy, in corp development, all kinds of different areas. But I made the biggest shift, and I'm excited and so happy that I did. is I just changed jobs and became the VP of Business Operations in claims, which is insurance, really important function of insurance. So I'm learning all the technical skills, but I would say this, what didn't, should, I would say, I shouldn't say it surprised me. What was great to see is learning the new business wasn't the hard part. The easy part that came with it, and what made it easy was I already had the skills to be the leader. And now it's just matter of changing your audience and understanding your audience, and then accordingly being agile to shift and being open to shift. And all this came with all the soft skills, nothing with the hard skills, I would say. Soft skills of being curious, asking a lot of questions. I sit down with my teams on a regular basis, people who are on the front line, and ask them questions. How do you do your job? Can I job shadow you? Can I sit by you and just watch you do your job? And so it's all about being curious, caring for your people, being honest, trusting that you've got the great people around you that would bring the right decisions, and giving yourself some time and some grace. We sometimes are too harsh to ourselves, and we are kinder to others. So I would say be kind to yourself, and give yourself that time to learn, make mistakes, and just keep learning. So I'm enjoying being comfortable in the uncomfortable right now.
Yes.
And it's great because it builds newer muscles, newer skills. As a leader, you grow, you evolve. You know that you're not the subject matter expert, but you learn how to listen more, take like learnings in, hearing people speak, appreciating their work, and then just as long as like the results and output is coming and people can work together, I think you feel pretty accomplished as a leader every single day.
I love this. And thank you so much, Akanksha, for sharing this because, like, I think that this is like there is an overwhelm and anxiety and a stress around transformation, change, pivoting. So I love what you shared that once you build your capacity as a leader, that's basically transferable. And then you combine that with curiosity and your like zest for learning and also listening, and that would somehow build your like capacity as a technical or subject matter. And then at
Yeah.
the end of the day, understanding that your role is not to be that high performer, your role is to be the facilitator and enabler for everyone to work together. Like I think that if we want to leave this session with something, is that this mindset shift that everything is not on your shoulder, which I constantly think it is, and it's really on you to build that climate for others to thrive. I think that's a game changer, I would say.
100%. I mean, I think about it all the time. And Nogol, if I had to give people advice as I look back and say, when I was young and I was learning as a leader, like what advice would I give to myself to be, I would say, like, stop trying to be impressive, but start being useful. And I'm applying that today when I'm not an expert in the room, I'm learning a new skill, but I'm trying to be useful. And again, be clear, be laser focused. You know what your priorities are, and you're able to communicate that well to your team so they have some direction. I think it sounds simple, but just so key to be successful. Also, give feedback sooner. Be kind, be direct, but be clear. Don't wait too long. Don't beat around the bush. Don't sugarcoat or sandwich the good news, the bad news, and the good news, and just give it direct. People need to hear. Don't dodge conflict. Important one. Like learn how to handle conflict. Conflict resolution is also another one of the key skills that will continue to make us better. And then last but not the least, I would say build the relationships before you need them.
Mm-hmm.
That's your greatest asset. Don't think I don't need to interact with this person because I know don't need them. Just have that curiosity to ask questions, to learn more. Business is not a transaction. If you treat this as a relationship, then you know you build those long lasting relationships. And also I would say this whole leadership thing, I mean, people read books, people read podcasts, you've got inspiring leaders around you can listen to. There's so much out there, but know that leadership is a journey. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and you keep focusing on just progress over perfection. I keep saying to myself, I'm not going to be perfect. I won't have all the answers. I'm here to learn, and I'm here to do great work and make an impact. And then as you go with that mindset, you take some of that extra, weight that we put on our shoulders, and we just deal with things as humans, and treating each other right, and just doing great work. I know sounds really simple, but that's my
No, but I
mantra.
love it. And and it's really resonated with me because like the idea of being impressive, like being like try to be useful rather than impressive. Like I think that this is extremely key because then you look at things from the collective standpoint again, rather than being the high performer in the meeting. Like it was a very, very nice, like approach to leadership that I'm not here to impress everyone with what I know or what I do. Like I'm really sitting here to be useful. And to your point, sometimes that usefulness is just being silent and allowing others to talk, is really listening. But I think once you know that this is how I'm useful here, then you create that space for people, for
Absolutely, beautifully
others.
said.
Awesome. I love this. Like, Akanksha, we can continue this conversation for another few hours.
Oh,
But
you and I are passionate, two passionate individuals on this topic. We can go on and on.
on and on. But, thank you so much. This was a lot of nuggets, a lot of insights. Thank you so much for your, like, sharing your own journey. Because, as I mentioned, like, for me, it's important that people hear a different kind of leadership, like the people that they're doing the groundwork, they're paving a different um, kind of like leading people, that it's more future ready, it's more human centered. And to your point, it's really much more needed for the time that we're in. So thank you so much for like sharing all your insights. As I mentioned, everything will be like shared on LinkedIn, but also later on and on the YouTube. So, for our listeners, we're going to be back next week for another conversation. And again, Akanksha Malik, thank you so much for your time and for being with us.
Thank you. Pleasure was mine, Nogol. Thank you
Thanks
again.
a lot. Thank you.
Take care.